And welcome back to another exciting episode of A Gamer's Guide to Productivity. I'm your host, Nico Penguin, and today we have a returning guest from episode 8. We have Kendrick Grey, or as he's known, Dreadloc Blerd. And so we're going to have a nice little uh you know conversation here. And so that those that may not remember, Kendrick is not only an accomplished actor and martial artist with a seventh dan black belt, but he's also a dedicated writer, an aspiring director, and a YouTuber. Born in New Jersey, he's been honing his martial arts skills for over 20 years, starred in several short films and action movies, including some indie, and performs stunts, which is really cool. He also runs his YouTube channel, Dreadloc Blerd Entertainment, where he has reaction videos, reviews, Q&As, and so much more. He also hosts his own podcast called the Dreadloc Blerd Talk Podcast, discussing a wide range of topics with diverse guests. And so today we're going to review and dive into his journey, not only into what he is passionate about, but also his aspirations and motivations, what also inspired him. So get ready for a conversation packed with insight and inspirations. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy it. And for ad-free listening, make sure to check us out on Spotify and Apple and everywhere else where you consume podcasts. Well, with that said, thank you so much, Mr. Dreadloc Blerd, for joining us today, Kendrick.
Thank you for having me back, man. When you reached out about having me come back on the show, I was like, I was highly excited because I remember the first conversation we had, which was very, 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 very good. So of course I had to come back for round two.
Oh no, certainly. And I took a listen again because it was such an engaging conversation discussing all things like Marvel, DC, writing. And I wanted to dive deeper into your motivations, into what made you decide to be career oriented. Because in this day and age, it's so very hard to do something that may not be a guarantee, may not have a positive ROI, maybe being threatened by AI. And so, since you're at the forefront here, what keeps you motivated and positively wanting to continue?
Honestly speaking, I would say first and foremost, it's just the fun I have doing this, honestly. And I think that's probably the most important thing. What do they usually say? They usually say if you enjoy what you do, you never work a day in your life. And
Facts.
that's how I approach this as well. Now, I'll be completely honest. I'm not as consistent as I was in the beginning, only because life things happen.
Like,
I mentioned before, married. I got a kid now, and
hey,
plus, I work a full time job. Plus, I still teach on this.
mm,
When every day, honestly, I'm still teaching every day, but I do make it my business to carve out time to do this, to do the YouTube thing still, to do the podcast thing. I have a genuine joy for just sharing my thoughts on certain things, whether it be some things comic book related, video
right?
games, or just in general, just life conversations. I think having the joy and the love of doing this is what's going to keep you motivated. Now, if you're motivated by monetary things, I get it. It's 2024.
Hmm.
Everybody's out to get their bag, as they say. But there has to be a level of enjoyment in what you're doing in order for you to keep doing it. If you're just waking up, and you hear these guys all over social media, I wake up, I do this, and the first thing I'm thinking about is how much money can I make today? And I'm like, really? That's your first thought when you wake up? You know what my first thought is when I wake up? What am I going to have for breakfast? Or hopefully no one's in the bathroom when I have to go. That's my
Right.
first thought in the morning. It's not how much thousands or whatever the heck money am I going to be making within the first hour of my day. Like people trying to micronize the minutes in their day into it being this, talking about like this is not 24 hours they get in a day, they get like 100 hours, and then like stop it, knock it off. get your life together, okay? Because if that's your main focus, then your life doesn't really sound all that enjoyable. It may sound like that for you, but not for me.
Hmm. Right.
So, and even now, like I said before, I am not as consistent as I was before. Where when I started, I was banging out a couple of videos a day, as opposed to just a couple of videos a week. And now I'll jump on. I'll do a pod episode whenever I
Hmm.
feel like talking about something. I mean, I just recently did one with one of my boys who lives overseas, and most of that pod discussed the future of Marvel and, well,
Mm.
rather the MCU to be more specific, and where that's going to go within the next couple of months, since Deadpool and Wolverine is the next Marvel movie coming out. And as far as I know, we're not getting any other movie for the rest of the year. But
Right. Because
that's what we
Khan
talked
got
about.
scrapped, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those things where it's like you got to really find the things that you enjoy doing and just go ahead and do them. Now, if it's a thing that where you can do it every day, cool. If it's a couple times a week, cool. If it's a couple times a month, cool. But whatever works for you, that's what you go with.
No, I completely agree because I think that's the whole point, of being a productive gamer. You know, you can't always put a 100% focus into gaming. Life still occurs.
Hmm.
In your case, now that you have a family, now it's time to embrace, a gamer as a father type, you know, where you might not be able to have 12, 15 hour, streams or gaming sessions or brainstorming sessions, etc. You might have just like 30 seconds
Yeah, yeah,
where
really,
you have to use your time wisely.
absolutely, and that's really what it is because even if it's like you say, even if you can only game for like 15, 30 minutes,
Hmm.
you know, that's if that's what you can do, then that's what you do. As long as you're enjoying it while you're doing it, and it doesn't become a task to jump on a stream. Like, like that's my thing. Like, if I'm gonna stream a game, I'm definitely gonna stream a game that gonna enjoy playing.
Right.
And many of us who game know that sometimes you need to go on for like maybe 30 minutes, and the time you look at the clock again, 4 hours have gone. That's
Mm.
just how gaming is. So it's one of those things where, like, if you have a genuine joy for it and it's not something that you have to clock in to do, then it's going to work out in the long run, essentially.
And as you are pressed for time, what kind of games do you find yourself being able to enjoy, if at
Like
all?
these days, ironically, I'm still wrapped up in games that have come out within the past couple of months. Like, shoot, I just recently started Spider-Man 2 again
Mm.
on New Game Plus. Hard mode. I just recently started that again. I'm not even finished. I'm still not finished with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I started that months ago, and every time I play, I can only play like maybe for an hour, but I still have fun with it. And I'm even find myself, going back to God of War, um, Valhalla. I'm playing that still. So I I tend to go with games that I know I'm going to get a lot of replay value with. God of War, Final Fantasy VII, Spider Man, um, hell, Tekken 8, Mortal Kombat 1. I mean, I'll even jump back to the PS4 with Ghost of Tsushima. I was just playing that the other day. You
Right.
know, my focus, well, rather, my enjoyment comes from games that offer a lot of replay value. Things where I can get, and like, granted, again, a game like Ghost of Tsushima, I've beaten it twice already, normal and New Game Plus. I've beaten it twice, and I'm still going back to play it, even if it's just
Dang.
to kill some Mongols because I like killing Mongols. So I'll just go back and do that. Spider-Man 2 was a game I thoroughly enjoyed. So it was without hesitation that I was able to just jump right into New Game Plus on very hard and just start playing that again. You know, and I know most streamers, they do get games that they rather enjoy.
Right.
I people who know me know that I'm not a big fan of like games like Fortnite or what's the other one that's like Fortnite? Apex, is it Apex Legend? Is that
There's
the
an
name?
Apex Legends, yeah.
Like or things like Roblox and stuff like that.
Oh
Those
yeah,
aren't
yeah. Minecraft, yeah.
Minecraft thing like that. Those aren't really my thing, but
Max.
I do have a set of games that I can definitely go back to playing. Like hell, I'll even pop in either Tekken 7 or Tekken, what is it? Whatever Tekken games have Tekken bowl mode on it, I'll pop that into because
Mm.
I like bowling in the Tekken games. Those are my ever since the original Tekken tag. I've enjoyed Tekken bowling. So
Okay, okay. And in your case, how do you end up working on scripts or stories, or is that also having to be like micro, dosed in terms of being able to create on a microscopic scale of in terms of timeline, like only 30 seconds here and there, a minute here and there?
now the writing process, ironically, is a lot more easier for me than everything else.
Mm.
I mean, granted, it doesn't take much for me to set up my camera, set up my whole video setup, and record a video. That's not an issue. I've been like coming like just so you guys understand. Next year, March, April will make it 10 years I've been doing YouTube.
Wow.
So, needless to say, I've mastered being able to set myself up. Like I'm to the point where I carry it with me or wherever I go. Like
Right.
not just my computer. I got my webcam. I got my mic. I carry that with me everywhere I go, because you never know the moment where I might decide to set up, do a quick video, or maybe host a quick podcast somewhere. That's not outside of the realm of possibility for me. But writing is a lot more again for me is a lot more easier to jump into. Usually the process for me is I have an idea, I jot the idea down, and
Hmm.
then like so I have an idea or a concept for a story. I'll jot that concept down, and then the next thing I will definitely go to is who are the characters in it, because the players of a story, excuse me, are, I mean, we all know those are most usually the most important part of your story. Who
Hmm.
and who's involved with the story.
Right.
So that's pretty much how I'll go, and then from there, I'll outline, the beginning, middle, and end. Usually that's what I'll do. I'll outline the beginning, middle, and end where the story is going to start, where it's going to be in the middle, and how it's going to end. And then once I have the main ideas of what the story is, then I jump in and I start, banging the script out. You know, I have an idea of like how I want it to start, you know, where it's going to meet up in the middle, and how the movie's supposed to hit its climax. That's pretty much how my process is. And a lot of the, I guess the best way to put it is a lot of my I guess early works or early um exercises rather in script writing was writing fan stuff.
Mm.
You and I have been on this platform of YouTube and Twitch and all this stuff for a while now, and there's been a plethora of fan films, fan shorts, fan related content that has been all over the internet.
Right.
And I would imagine that a lot of those guys probably have the same process. They see something. I mean, heck, the last fan film I watched was, what is it? That Wolverine fan film, Logan the
Mm.
Wolf or Wolverine the Wolf or something like that.
Oh, for real?
I just I just happened to stumble upon it on a Saturday night, scrolling through YouTube, and I see this thing. I sat there. It was like 15 minutes. I'm like, oh my god, this thing is amazing. But
Dang.
again, obviously, the person who made that, or the people who make most fan made, films, they took a concept, they applied their own little spin to it, and then bang out the script, cast it, all that stuff, and then that's how they got it made. So doing that for something original is shouldn't be that hard either. Whatever original concept that you have either in that instant or something that's been swirling in your head for like a couple of months, you know, always just write down my advice would be to just write down what the basic idea of what that story is, the basic idea, the basic premise, all that. Next step, figure out who the players are, who are the characters in your story, and how do they progress the story, and
Mm-hmm.
then figure out what the big story beats are.
The story what?
Exactly. Does your story start in the middle of? Does the story start in the middle? Does it have a super beginning? Does it start from the middle and go back to the beginning, or start at the end and then you got to backtrack? Figure out how all that works, and then after that, once you have the main idea, you just got to figure out what these people are going to say, and that's essentially what the script is. It's basically what the order these people are going to say, and
Right.
in between those are just like descriptions on what is happening in the scene. You know, the books we've read in school are essentially just that. There's a lot more details of what's happening in the story because, of course, it's not on film. So the writer has to kind of detail to us what's exactly happening from one beat to the next. And in between that, dispersed is just pieces of dialogue, depending on what kind of story it is. If it was one of those stories that you read in like middle school, then that's what's going to happen. You're going to
Mm.
read little pieces of dialogue, and then the rest of it is just description of what's happening, where it's happening, and how it's happening.
Now, in that situation, what would you do if you're writing that script and you're coming across a fork in your decision making where it's a challenge because now you have to make a decision to make the script a little bit more mainstreamy. And since you're indie, if you make it more mainstreamy, then you're going almost against the grain. Versus if you make it a super original concept where it is now truly a unique idea, but you may lose some potential fans along the way. How do you make a decision on which path to go through?
In that instance, it's one of those things where you ultimately have to make a choice. Now, if it's something like completely original, you may want to take that chance, and your what your story being about not may not capture certain members of the audience that you wanted to capture, if you wanted to capture an audience. um and I'm pretty sure high end professional um script writers, screenplay writers, deal with the same exact thing. You got to ultimately pick, you know what's gonna do you want to see your vision come all the way through, or do you just want to give people a glimpse of what you can do, but then play it safe and dial it back down to something that's more palatable for the audience watching? And I know a lot of script writers, the high end ones to the up and comers, have to deal with that. I know they do, because let's look at a good example. Hell, shoot, a good example would be The Boys,
Mm.
the Amazon Prime series, The Boys, based off of the comic book series. The biggest the biggest piece of news right now surrounding The Boys is being review bombed because majority of the people who watch the series are just now realizing that the series is making fun of the far right.
Mm.
If you have good cognitive dissonance or good media literacy skills, then you would have peaked that from the first season.
Hmm.
You know, a lot of people didn't, and now that season 4 is pretty much putting it in your face, you can't help but you can't ignore the fact that, oh, wait a second, this is making fun of people who are on the far right. I don't
Mm.
like this anymore.
Mm.
Well, if you had peeped that from the beginning, then you probably wouldn't have liked it at all. But obviously they were, and not in my opinion, but in other people's opinion, it was very subtle in the first three seasons. I mean, season two literally had a Nazi. Okay,
Uh,
season two literally had a Nazi in Stormfront. Okay, how upfront in your face can you get?
right.
So, it's literally one of those things, and but there's also the flip side because there's sometimes where you can be a little too subtle with what you're
Hmm.
saying that no one really gets what you're saying until like way later, and
Right.
oftentimes it takes someone who really understood the story to explain it to the rest of the class, essentially. So it's really one of those things where you got to pick your battles and just keep working at it because if you can reach a point where you can take them there but then have them figure it out on their own the rest of the way, then you've hit something.
Oh, okay. So you would prefer that every time?
One more time.
You would prefer that every time?
Not all the time, because I mean, full transparency. Like to make a dollar, to make a buck, sometimes you might have to write some bullshit. Okay,
Okay.
I'm just gonna be upfront with you.
Hmm.
Sometimes you might have to write some bullshit that's gonna pay your bills, and I know there's a lot of screenwriters and scriptwriters that have done that a couple times in their lives. They just need something that's going to help them pay rent, so they'll write some bullshit that's going to get produced and made, and there you make some money. But to hold true to your own craft, and we're living in an age right now that where there's so many outlets for stories to be made. Now we don't have to just rely on the big name production studios, Warner Brothers, um, Disney, 20th Century Fox, Universal, all this stuff. It's not just them anymore. You can
Hmm.
go to someone like Amazon originals. You can go to someone like Netflix. You can go to hell. You can go to someone like Tubi.
Hmm.
Pitch them your movie idea,
Right.
and it's a 50-50 chance that it'll get made or it won't. Or maybe
Right.
they'll require you to tweak the script a little bit, and then you got yourself a deal.
Mm.
Is that so? There's varying degrees as to how stories get made. Again, do all of them land? No. And we recently had to deal with the writer strike and the actor strike.
Right.
One of the longest strikes we've had in a while. So I know a lot of programs got affected by it, but sometimes that's what it takes because if you're banging, I mean, and especially if you're talking about one of these streaming services where you got to bang out a season every year, every year, every year. You got to be able to come up with new material either before the season starts filming or right on the fly when the season is in the middle of filming.
Mm.
I mean, how many movies right now have to go back for reshoots and stuff and rewrites and all that other stuff? It happens. It's a part. It's a part of the game. So if you are in it and you're in it for the joy of it, those are some of the pitfalls that you have to be aware of. You know, Sometimes what you wrote may have worked at one point, but then going forward, maybe it might be hard to film. So you got
Mm.
to tweak it so you can make it a little bit more palatable for the camera. And those are things I take into consideration. In fact, I mean, just a couple of years ago, and I think this might have been either right before our first um interaction or right after our first interaction.
Okay.
I was contracted to write a short script for someone who was looking to have their idea, you
Hmm.
know, turned into a short film.
Right.
He reached out to me. We talked. We conversed. Of course, in more cases, you got to send people a sample of your work. You
Right.
know,
Of course.
I sent him a page of one of the fan films I wrote, if I'm not
Mm.
mistaken. And the first thing he said to me was, "Everything you wrote, I saw right in my head. That's what you want to have happen. That's exactly what you want to have happen. That's probably the best compliment you can get
Right.
from writing a script. That if someone can read what you wrote and they can already picture it inside your head the way you intended it to be seen,
Yeah.
you're in there. You're in there.
No, that's so true. And I do want to question, how do you use, or how do you acquire a rich vocabulary to be able to pinpoint and describe that? Because I think I was reading an article that said, like, your mind has such a interesting way to create, but it only, like, you can describe to, like, the 10th degree, depending on your vocabulary, like 90%. And the more words you come across, the more you can pinpoint with accuracy what you're describing or what you're thinking and feeling, because it's such a vague concept to emote and feel and think. But with words, you can clarify. So, how do you increase your diction, your vocabulary, to be able to describe with words?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. As a kid, I hated reading.
Hmm.
All the way, I would say, all the way up until maybe seventh grade, I hated reading. Even in eighth grade, if it was something that I really would find interesting, I would read it. But for the most part, I would only read just enough to do assignments. What really, really, really helped me work out my creative process for writing was comic books. Now, granted, comic books, they have dialogue, they have words, but they have pictures in them.
Right.
So that was the first step. The first step was my new love for comic books. Um, of course, watching a lot of movies. Watching a lot of movies also kind of did that for me as well. But what really, really took me over and started to drive the idea in my head that maybe I could write a script was creative writing in high school.
Hmm.
Creative writing and English class. Honestly, I remember, I would say, my sophomore year of high school, and I can't for the life of me remember what the name of the class was, but it was like a writing class essentially, and we had to do writing assignments. And I remember at the time it was two teachers in the class. I don't know why, but I remember writing something, and I remember the teacher literally pulling me to the side and saying like, "This is very well written." And once I once that was told to me, I was like, "Huh, there might be something to this then."
Okay.
And over time, I will continue to work on different writing techniques. In fact, even in high school, I would play around and write like little fake scripts and stuff like that just to see how they would sound. Um, this I really started to fully understand the process of script writing. Again, once I got into creative writing, that was my junior year of high school. That was my junior year of high school. I got to creative writing. In that class, we learned different techniques of how to get your story across, whether it was something that had to be a short story or
Hmm.
a quick passage. Sometimes it would be like a prompt on a board that we have to look at and take and adopt into something like a full out story. And you know what it really what really really got me into the concept of being able to do it.
Hmm.
I used not so much anymore, but I used to collect DVDs.
Okay.
DVDs, Blu-rays, that was my thing. Like after like the first Matrix movie, my movie buffness was like extremely born. Like so I used to spend a lot of time watching the behind the scenes stuff, like watching all the
Mm.
disc two,
Yeah.
featurettes of how this was made and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's where I got a lot of that stuff from. And
That's where you filled your information for.
exactly.
Okay.
And then,
It was not
I would
okay. Okay.
they
That's
would they
interesting.
would show up clips of like pieces of the script in like the behind the scenes stuff. And then
For
it's
real?
like certain DVDs would do that. Not a
Yeah, 'cause
lot of them.
I,
Certain
I,
ones would do
I,
that.
yeah, I typically get the when I used to get the DVDs and Blu-rays, I would try to get like the complete collection that would have like an extended behind the scenes. Like I
Yeah,
think I did it for like almost all of the um that zombie movie with the female Raccoon City. What's that called?
the Resident Evil
Um,
series.
Yes, with the Resident Evil series. Like I got the complete collection, so I got to see like all the makeup, the behind the scenes. I don't really remember them reviewing like a script writing. Like I do remember like for Game of Thrones, they
Hmm.
did do the script writing. And I saw like like what a reading looks like, and I'm like, man. So if I ever went into like filming, like everybody gets their script and they're supposed to already know it, but then you come together and then you
Yep.
do it once again because you're gonna go out there and spend a lot of money filming, you, you don't want to have to do too many retakes because
Yeah.
that costs money.
Yeah. And interesting enough, that's when I realized that like, oh, script writing is really just long form storytelling. You're literally
Yeah,
just writing a story in just linear form. So it's
hmm
not like you're writing like a book or a fictional or like just like a fictional story, like a book you would pick up at the library or something like that, where there's no pictures in it. A script is essentially the same thing. The only difference, and it also depends on the film, because there are some films that don't have a lot of dialogue in it. So that's not something you have to worry about. Like, it's like for anyone listening, script
hmm
writing is basically just story writing. It's just storytelling. You're just you're just kind of getting down to the bare bones of it all. So while if you read a book, like if you read like the Game of Thrones, series and things like that, then yes, they write it in a way that you can visualize it in your head to a degree. A script is almost the same exact thing, but the description in these scripts are for the is for the production crew. That's what that's for.
mm,
And the players of the movie or TV show or whatever. The descriptions are there just so you know exactly what is happening either at that moment of time, what's happening to you, the character, or what's happening to a different character. That's what that is. Like, I mean, for instance, you can't. I mean, you could, but it would take a lot. You can't really write a fight scene. You can insert a fight scene into a script. You can describe maybe some of the key points of that fight, but ultimately,
right,
the fight scene is up to the choreography crew. That's what that's for. So you gotta, whether you're the script writer or you're just a producer, you approach the stunt team was like, okay, look, we need a fight that is either very subdued or very bombastic. What can you
mm,
put together for us? And it has to be this long. It has to be X amount of minutes long. What can we come up what can we come up with? Like, again, you look at something like the Matrix. The Matrix was very cyberpunk, kung fu, you know, gung fu, high flying. The Matrix is literally a live action anime.
right.
If we're just gonna cut to the chase, the Matrix is a
We're
live
just
action
being
anime.
honest. We're just being honest.
Exactly. So how can we make the most fantastical fights that can be filmed reasonably on screen? Now, this is one of the reasons why I give the first Matrix so much credit, because it's the actors themselves that are doing a lot of the work. I mean, yeah, there's
Right.
of course stunt crew for like certain hits and things like that, certain scenes and stuff. But the fact that the entire cast who had fights in the movie did all the fight choreography themselves is always going to be a move that's going to always garner my respect. You
Hmm.
know, the later Matrix movies, specifically the Matrix Reloaded, Matrix Two, they opted for a lot more CGI with some of the fights, which kind of took me out of it, because one of the main reasons why the first Matrix movie is so highly regarded and highly respected is because it's real people doing these things. They trained for months and months and months to do those fight scenes,
Right.
only for some of it to be done, and then some of it to be done with CGI characters. And like, it's whatever. But you know, middle school, high school, and then just the things I watch. Just watching a lot of different types of shows, movies, animes, things like that. You know, I learned that, like, if you can write these things out in a way where people can picture these things in their head and how it's happening, then you got something. Then you're on the right track.
Okay. Now I have a question to see. Now, if you don't know this answer, feel free to not even say anything. What would you say is like the anime equivalent to the Matrix?
Now, I've told people that the Matrix, if we had to attach it, if we had to give the equivalent of an anime, okay, the first one, the first Matrix movie is kind of similar to Cowboy Bebop in a way. The first Matrix, a little bit similar to is parts Cowboy Bebop.
Okay.
Um, there's another anime that I'm thinking of that is kind of like, because I mean the Matrix series itself does take a lot of inspiration from anime. Um, Cowboy Bebop, Ghost in the Shell, um, even to a degree like things like Ninja Scroll a little bit. The second Matrix movie still along the same lines, but now we're kind of getting into like the One Piece almost. The third Matrix movie, I mean, you got the mech fights, which is not that dissimilar from like things like Neon Genesis Evangelion, Gundam, um, even Transformers, almost to a degree. The final fight of the Matrix Revolutions, which is Neo and Smith, that is purely Dragon Ball Z, purely like them flying in the air, hitting each other. The only thing that was missing was the constant punching and kicking in rapid fire and energy blasts. That's the only thing that was missing from the Matrix Revolution. If those were included, you would clearly see that this was inspired by Dragon Ball Z. So, but yeah, the Matrix franchise definitely borrows heavily from a lot of different animes and graphic novels, of course, but definitely a lot of different animes.
Hmm. Oh yeah, I definitely see that big time. Especially the Ghost in the Shell reference that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely see the correlation there big time. When I also think of the Matrix, also in terms of impact, alone, I think symbolically it's like Akira level.
Yes,
In terms of
absolutely.
impact
Yeah.
alone, the only reason I say that is because when you were mentioning that it took inspiration from certain anime, I was thinking like, what is a film or an anime that it was so powerful upon its release because the idea was so unique, it was such a brand new concept. Maybe other people have done it before, but they brought it to the limelight where
Yep.
it became a mainstream new unique idea from scenes that were unable to be registered previously on anime before in Akira to then you having the the concept of transhumanism and robots AI, which we're not we're in the
Mm-hmm.
process, right? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So it's like, futuristically foretelling, like Oracle level, like this is what's gonna happen in the future, and so when you see that kind of level of impact on the film, at least for me, when I first saw Akira after so many years of getting recommended, I was like, oh, it's probably gonna be washed. It's not even that good. It's years old. This is like in the 70s or whatever. Watched it. I'm like, wow. I'm like, yo, maybe I should go and watch this like Matrix thing. Watch the Matrix, man. I watched it like 9 times in like three
Yeah.
days. It was
Yep. That sounds about right.
so freaking good. And then I started paying attention to like the innuendos, like the theme. and I started understanding like what it was actually attempting to convey, from just the concept of the blue pill versus the red pill, you know. It's such an amazing concept. That's one of the reasons why you see these. It's like because you can choose one, you can choose the other, you can choose both, you can choose none. Life has such a unique way, and I think as a creative author, as a creative writer, as a script writer, as a content creator, podcast host, I think having so much information, so much film, so much knowledge allows you to then come into the writing game and scripting game and be able to decide to grab from here, grab from there, make something brand new. uh, and because of that, I also wanted to ask you, because you mentioned that you were so big on the Matrix and the whole trilogy series. When you see a film that's so impactful like that, Akira did not have a sequel. How do you feel about a film like that being so impactful, having a sequel that arguably most people don't believe or feel made its way anywhere near what the first one was? Do you feel like that it should have just one and done it, or that they should be on number 7 or 8 right now, like Fast and Furious? What's your take on that?
See, for me, it depends on the story. The Matrix was a movie that I can wholeheartedly say didn't need a sequel. Like
Hmm.
if we had just gotten the first Matrix one and done, I'd be okay with that.
So it
Like,
would have been more revered type of thing,
oh, absolutely,
because if we
absolutely.
only have one.
hmm And
Mm,
like, I mean, granted, we live in an age right now, and you know as just as well as I do, where franchising is the name of the game.
right,
If you can't franchise it, then you're kind of probably going to be left in the dust, which is not
right,
true, by the way. I just want people to understand that that is not true in 2024. Like, it's still okay to just give us a one hitter quitter and keep it moving. That's
right.
still okay. Um, the Matrix is definitely a movie where it's like, I mean, granted, we got the sequels, but at the time, it's one of those things where it was like, you say to yourself, I can't wait to see what they do with a part two or a second installment. But if we never got a second movie, if we never got The Matrix Reloaded, I think I would have been okay with that. I'd have been cool. Like, give us this, give us this masterpiece. I'm good. I'm good. The way it ended, it leaves it open to your interpretation. Anything can happen. Neo gets off the phone. He looks up in the sky, takes off. I mean, he gets one of the powers that's one of my favorites. Like, the power of flying is one of my favorite powers. If you guys
Mm,
didn't know that, that's one of my favorite powers. And the fact
interesting.
that he flew off into the screen was hype. I mean, of course, you would want any normal person would get hype for a possible sequel, but if we didn't get one, I don't think it would definitely hurt. It would go down. It would again go down as a movie that was possibly way ahead of its time, because the one thing I will give the first Matrix movie is that any person that came out of the movie theater felt like their brains was awakened. They felt like they just woke up out of the Matrix.
Right.
That's how that's how strong of a story that movie was. I remember me and my cousin walking out of the movie theater and just looking around. It's like, is any of this real? Are we living in the Matrix right now? Showing up to school, be like, hey, you're still in a pod. You don't know what's going on. But that's the
While
kind of
in class.
impression a movie exactly, like, that's the kind of impression you want to
Yeah,
leave
that's
on people when
strong.
they leave a movie theater. You want to have them saying, like, again, before the Matrix, I was the type of person, I'd go to the movie theaters, see a movie, you know, if I liked it, it'd be like, cool, talk about it, come home, and then I wouldn't think about it again until the VHS or the DVD dropped, or it came on TV.
Right.
You know, The Matrix was the first movie I went back to the movie theater to go see again. I saw that movie in the movie theaters 3 times. I had never done that before. The Matrix was the first movie I did that with. That's how much I enjoyed it. And any movie that can do that to a person has to be has to be worth something. It has to be worth something in the end.
I
Because
felt that.
I mean, to drop money 3 times for a movie theater, and granted, movie tickets were cheaper back then, by the way, people. So let's make that clear. We're talking $99 here, $19.99 money. Okay, so
Somebody might have said, "Well, you went on 3 separate dates? What?"
like if you were lucky, you live where I live, you'd only have to pay like maybe $8 for a movie,
Oh, okay.
maybe. So like yeah, movie theater tickets back then prices was pretty solid. It's pretty solid. But again, you know, to want to drop money 3 times to go see this movie, you know, it's a movie that has you hooked. And like I mentioned before, we look at everything now where everything's almost like I think we're kind of slowly getting out of that ideology now of the whole franchise thing.
Mm.
I mean, you mentioned the Fast and Furious franchise. Again, you know, I was done after 5. Uh, I was finished after 5. After Fast 5, I was done. I'm like, okay,
I was done after six.
I'm done now because then it becomes a thing like, where can you sensibly go?
Right.
I mean, how many times have you seen people joke like the Fast and the Furious team? They got to team up with the Transformers now. Like, where else are you gonna go? Like, what else can you do with the
Intergalactic
franchise? You got
travel.
to either you got to team up with the Transformers or you got to team up with GI Joe. Like,
No, no, they gotta go straight to the Star Wars.
like no, exactly. They got to go to space
Fast,
now. That's it.
they're already in outer space, so Fast and Furious and Star Wars.
Exactly. So it's like
Hey, don't
you gotta
copyright me, guys.
now. Granted, people still go see them.
Right?
I don't know why, but people still go see them.
I think it's
Like
the
I said,
nostalgia. Like they
and
grew up watching it, and now they're a little
and
older. Now they can go with their kids. Like, hey guys, I was there when the first one came out, and we're on number 10.
and you're absolutely right in that, and that's exactly what it is. Because again, I was done after 5. Like after 5, I was like, I don't think I need to catch anything else with this. You know, because at first it started out as street racing. Now they're literally doing jobs for the government.
Mhm.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. But again,
I know who's
and
funding
you
the
know,
films.
hmm
I mean, what?
and then like I mean, and even the same can be said for the MCU. You
Yeah,
know,
I was just about to say that. I think like there was a couple of shows that didn't do too well, and some movies didn't do too well, and the I'm pretty sure the head honchos were like, "Hey, they're just gonna come because of the nostalgia." They're just
and
gonna come
that's
because of because we're slapping Marvel on it. They're just gonna buy the tickets. They don't even care if it's good.
there's actually both sides of the spectrum doing that. There are the people that are going to go to watch these movies because they were there from the beginning. They were there when Iron Man first took flight. You know, but the other side is you also got those people that are going to hate watch it because they're going to
Mhm.
look for something to nitpick. So they're going to watch something. They're going to come back to the internet and they're going to be like, such and such stunk. Such and such sucks. The MCU is dead. I'm like, no, it's not because you just spent money to go see it. So as far as it stands, they got your money. So they won. All right. So and just even piggyback off what you said, like yes, since Endgame, the MCU, kind of hasn't been the same. You know, they gave us Black Widow way after the fact. That should have been something that happened right before. I mean, they could have did that right before Infinity War.
Yes, I was
They
such a
could have,
big fan for Black Widow. I hated that they delayed it by like 8 years.
so
They should have dropped it. The second or third movie that she was in, it should have been right there. Because
yep.
it's like she don't have any superpowers. So it's like, why are you delaying, what her background and her origin story is? Like
I
everybody
mean,
knows what it is. Just show
yeah.
it.
I mean, nothing against the movie because I enjoyed the movie relatively. I didn't hate it. Of course, I watched it on Disney Plus. I didn't hate it, but again, and this has been a new thing I've been doing lately with my reviews for certain things. Like if Black Widow came out, like you said, like I would say after Age of Ultron. If Black Widow
Yeah,
came out after Age of Ultron,
perfect timing right there.
would have been great. Would have did numbers,
N-
But like to
Not
wait
only
that long,
numbers, it was perfect. That is exactly when it should have came, because I feel like right there was a little drop off, because it's like you ended the film on, like, like there was no big problem, everything was solved.
yeah,
Hey, what about this person? That way we can see everything about her background, and it
right,
makes it more sense. Obviously, they waited because they wanted to tie in into, I guess, the Infinity Saga or whatever,
hmm
and make explain some new technology, and they couldn't do it at that stage. I get that, but it's like you could have done two Black Widow films, man. You could have done a early one and then a later one, and then just like both films just reveal certain information about her background, like the Superman films. Like they're always dropping like a new cutscene, like, hey, remember, back then, comic book me used to do this, so let's just throw this here during this cutscene or flashback or whatever, and then in the second movie, Batman versus Superman, let's do the same thing, but just do something else. And just let's look back at when he was dating Lois Lane or something like that. So it's like, films do have that
yeah.
opportunity.
So yeah,
And
exactly. So it's again, it's one of those things where it's just like you gotta you gotta have a trajectory of where you're
mm,
going, and like I said, I don't see. I mean, I don't see the MCU, stopping at any point. Like
no,
I
of
said,
course not.
Deadpool and Wolverine is the next thing we're getting next month. We're getting literally getting that next month, and like I've been telling all my friends, like it's a movie that has to kill at the box office. It has to. I think it will. I definitely think it will because again, a lot of people love Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, and the fact that he got Hugh Jackman to come back as Wolverine, it's a win-win. I mean, it's a
I
win-win.
mean,
So
if it does numbers, we're gonna definitely start seeing a lot more of the OGs. We might even see some of the original cast members, which is always going to be good. Now, I definitely do want to ask if you personally have any upcoming projects that you're either working on, that you're thinking about starting to pick back up. If you get enough people to hit you up, like what's your timeline looking at future project wise?
right now, I will admit I haven't been writing as much as I would like to because, of
Hmm.
course, life things.
Yeah, yeah.
But I did write a couple of things even last summer. I wrote a short, a completely original short. The title's called Power Perceived. It was going to be a project that I was going to do with a couple of friends and some of the people from the karate school that I teach at.
Okay.
So, things kind of got crazy for all of us. Again, life happens, of course. But recently, I came into contact with someone who also writes as well. Um, we talked a little bit here and there. He told me that he's actually he's been in contact with Hugh Jackman.
Wow.
Um, he writes himself, of course, so he's been writing a story that he's actually been trying to get Hugh Jackson's help to push through. He
Wow.
did speak with me recently. He told me that he's supposed to be meeting with A24. So he hit me up. He told me if you have any projects that you would like for them to look into, shoot it to him, and then he can see if they would check it out. So I I took the short for Power Perceived, got it copyrighted. I did that. So again, little tidbit for anyone who writes. If you want to have something looked at or submitted, get it copywritten. Doesn't really even cost you that much. It cost me $25. Yeah, I'm not a part of the Writers Guild yet. I'm still trying to figure out how to do that, but
Mm-hmm.
they will let you copyright a script for a small fee, even if you're not a
Mm.
part of the Writers Guild yet. So that's my little piece of advice to any of you guys watching. If you write and you want to get something copyrighted, just go to the Writers Guild wherever you live, submit it, pay that fee, and you're good to go. They will email you a certificate. You'll be solid. So I believe he's supposed to be doing that at some point. If not this week, then this weekend he's supposed to be meeting with them, and he's gonna have them look at what I got, and we'll see what happens with that. But aside from that, I told him, of course, and my other friends that I was gonna be trying to utilize the free time I have right now since I work at a school. So the last day of school was yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm officially on summer vacation. I was going to
Nice.
finish writing up my feature length comedy script. Just to give you guys an idea what it's about. I had this wild concept in my head a few years back about what if, and this is something I've even joked about on Facebook on social media. What if the Girl Scouts were a secret cartel behind the scenes? Where there was like a
Mm.
secret mafia cartel behind the Girl Scout cookie sales, because you and I both know that when it comes time for Girl Scout cookies, they are on it. They out there. They out there
That
selling.
sounds a
So
little like nonfiction. You writing a documentary?
if it turns out to be one, I don't know. I'm writing a comedy. That's all I know I'm doing. So I'm essentially writing a comedy script centered around that concept of Girl Scouts and Girl Scout cookie sales being like an underground crime ring of some kind. So I'm gonna hopefully the next couple of days see if I can bang the rest of that out, and then see if I can turn that into something later on. If not sometime during the summer, then maybe later on this year.
Oh,
And
nice.
as far as fan things, again, there's a couple of things that I already wrote years ago. I'm talking like 2017, that we were going to try to get off the ground. Like I'm pretty sure I talked about this the last time I was here. I talked about like my fan film centered around Young Justice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we had casted everybody. We had started getting costumes and outfits and stuff, and then the pandemic hit. So then and we were dealing with that for X amount of time. So that kind of took a back seat. A lot of people that we casted, moved on, moved away, things like that. So, but we always said that we would revisit that. Another fan film that I plan to make is something centered around Equilibrium. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how familiar you are with that movie. It's a Christian Bale movie, and we're going to use that as like a jump start to, get people's interest. If people liked that, which is not going to be as costly as a Young Justice fan film would be. Equilibrium was pretty low budget.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't really super special effects heavy. So I figured we can do that, and that's a short. Also, that's like a 30-minute short. Do that. That'll be like our tent pole, essentially, so people can see what I can do, and then if people are interested or find interest in that, then maybe we'll do the crowdfunding for the Young Justice fan film and get that made someday. But it's going to be, of course, finding the time and recasting a lot of the roles and stuff like that. But that's what's happening. But like I said, the short, power perceived, see what A24 thinks, see what happens from there, and if I can if I somehow manage to get a connect with them, that'd be pretty sweet. We'll see what
Mm-hmm.
happens. And aside from that, the podcast thing is still going. Like I said, I'm not as consistent as I was in the beginning, but I still try. I at least try to at least bang out at least one a month, at least one pod episode a month.
Nice.
Now that summer vacation's here, there's a couple of things that I plan to record. I'm actually getting ready to start a new segment on my YouTube channel called Better Late Than Never. This is
Hey.
for hearing about it first, and that's going to be a segment on my channel where I review things that have already come out, but for some reason I hadn't had the chance to watch. Like, I can tell you right now, the first couple of Better Late Than Never reviews are going to be about Madam Web,
Okay.
um, Dune Part Two,
Okay.
and what was the last one? There was one more that I'm supposed to be doing a review on. Now I gotta look that up.
Just how creatives think.
Yeah,
Gotta know right now.
let's, let's see. Oh, that's not it. That's what I'm doing. I'll just go to my Instagram because that's where it's at. So I'll just check there. So yeah, and I watched the I guess it's an OVA special, Baki Hanma versus Kengan Ashura. So
Mm.
so those are gonna be the next three things I'm gonna review. It's funny, there's actually probably another one that I gotta add to the list because I just recently watched Godzilla minus one. I just watched that last night. So I gotta do a Better Late Than Never review on that. So that's a new segment I'm getting ready to roll out hopefully this weekend. If I have the time to sit down and record. So because because life happens, I don't always get a chance to get to the movie theaters when a new movie drops that weekend. I didn't get a chance to go. I mean, well, let me be perfectly clear. Madam Web, I wasn't going to watch in movie theaters anyway.
Right.
That just wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going to watch Madam Web in movie theaters. So the fact that Madam Web showed up on Netflix just helped me a great deal. I wasn't going to pay for it. I was not going to pay for it. Dune Part 2, I unfortunately didn't get a chance to catch that in the movie theaters the weekend it dropped. There's actually a couple of things that I still need to catch up on. Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire. I still got to watch that.
Right.
The newest Planet of the Apes, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, I haven't watched that either. So I figured I had to say to myself, there has to be a way where I can review these movies even though I'm late to the party. So again, that's where I came up with the concept of the Better Late Than Never review. That's where, again, like I said, I can review things that have already come out, but I wasn't able to catch when it came out. Because as a content creator, YouTuber, whatever, part of being successful is doing things when they drop. So
Yeah.
like I mentioned before, the X-Men fan film or the Wolverine fan film, years ago when I had a lot more free time, I would have had the camera set up and everything and recorded myself reacting to the Wolverine fan film. But again, I was just sitting here scrolling through YouTube. I watched it, and right from there, and it wasn't until like the next day I started to see people's reaction to the Wolverine fan film, and I said to myself, "Damn, that's exactly what I should have done." But at a certain point, sometimes you miss the ball. And sure, I probably could have did one the next day, but at that time, I had already watched it. And if you're a genuine reactor, you're gonna, you want to do it at that moment in time when you're just now watching it. You don't want to try to do a fake review or a fake reaction after you've already seen something. So, and I did say that I was gonna try to start doing reactions again. That's something I've kind of strayed away from the past couple of years or so. But there is few times where something pops up like that Wolverine fan film where it's like, oh wow, this is actually really good. But you want to give people your genuine reaction. So I wasn't going to do a reaction to something I've just watched. So that boat passed. But again, like I said, the whole better late never review. I said to myself, yeah, this would probably be a good way to review things that have already come out that you know I didn't get a chance to catch when they came out. So again, I'm watching it now, so you get my review now. So that's how that's going to work.
No, and the naming is right on cue. So I do appreciate you for coming through, providing a ton of value, a ton of insight to us here. And I do want to give you the opportunity to let everybody know where they can support you best, or where you would feel most appreciated. That if somebody was listening today and they wanted your best way, best method to appreciate you, what would that be?
I would definitely say the podcast. Like I said, I probably put more energy into the podcast than I do anything else. Now, granted, I still do video podcasts. They literally start out in video form, and then if you're on Spotify, you know Spotify allows videos to go up, on this
Mhm.
platform. So oftentimes I'll put up the video format of a podcast on there, but usually it's the audio. I still put up videos on YouTube, so you can definitely still check me out there. Dreadloc Blerd is the name. If you type it in, I should pop up. You see the symbol. You see the symbol behind me right over here. If you see that logo, then you know it's me. But podcasts. I'm on Spotify. I'm on a bunch of different podcast streaming platforms, but you can definitely find me on Spotify. I'm still up on YouTube. I try to post also videos up on Facebook. I have a Facebook profile just for Dreadloc Blerd Entertainment, and yeah, you can follow me on Instagram. If you want to, I try to give a heads up on what I'm going to be doing in my next video, so you can check me out there. And yeah, as long as you type the name Dreadloc Blerd, you'll be able to find me.
Oh, perfect, perfect, perfect. So thank you so much, guys. That is a wrap for today's episode of A Gamer's Guide to Productivity. Once again, a huge shout out to Dreadlock Blerd for joining us today, sharing the incredible journey, valuable insights, inspirations, as mentioned. It's always a pleasure to have him on the show because he gives us the raw, uncut truth, the ups and downs of his productive journey. Um, and so, if you really enjoyed today's episode, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure to check out his YouTube channel. The link is in the description below. Make sure, as mentioned, if you want to support him, just search Dreadlock Blerd. Make sure you see that logo there. Support his podcast for more of his amazing content, Dreadloc Blerd Talk. Don't forget to subscribe to our own podcast here for more interesting stories and productivity tips, as well as insiders, as you guys paid attention to. He dropped a story writer insider. If you guys remember, drop it in the comment. You might get something special. Make sure to follow us on social media to stay updated on future episodes. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, keep striving for productivity and pursuing your passions. I'm Nico Penguin, and this is a Gamer's Guide to Productivity. Stay productive, gamers, and level up. Take care and have a great rest of your night.